Good afternoon, this is Master Chauvin, and today we're going to discuss cloud storage. By now, we should have already discussed what the cloud is. So we're just going to take a step back and rehash on that value. We're going to look at the differences between local storage versus cloud storage, and we're going to talk about some security issues with cloud storage in and of itself. So the cloud, what is it? The very easiest way to explain it is a group of servers that have internet accessibility. In other words, you can attach and talk with them anywhere in the world because they are connected through the internet. Now, cloud storage is the capacity to attach storage to those cloud items. So I can store any of my files out there on the internet, and I can get to them regardless of if I'm in LA or New York or any other city. As we said, the cloud is just a group of networks that are distributed across the world. NIST defines this as a model of enabling ubiquitous, convenient, and on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computer resources such as network servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. Now, when we're talking about cloud storage, this is storage space. Some of those examples include things like Google Drive, Apple iCloud, Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, and Amazon Cloud Drive. Now, by now, most of you have utilized one of these different methods to store information out there. With Microsoft, you get their OneDrive automatically. With Google Drive, you get their OneDrive, or you get their Drive automatically. So these are all available, and you may not even know that you're using them. A lot of these companies, such as Microsoft and Google, will back up your data to that shared drive that you get automatically. So what are some of the benefits of local storage versus cloud storage? Now, I want to caveat this. When we're talking about local storage, we're not talking about private cloud storage. Even though private cloud storage is part of your internal infrastructure, really when we discuss local storage, we're talking about attached to servers within your server farm, not within a cloud construct. So, some of the benefits of local storage is that the information is stored on your hard drives in your data center, in your facility. It's a lot harder to walk off with that information. Typically, it's locked down and stored. You're only going to gain access to that data if you have physical access to that facility, to the medium. You can walk up to the server, pull the drive out, or log in from somewhere there on the network. You don't have to have internet access to gain access to those files. You just have to have network access, maybe. Data can be permanently lost, especially if you don't have a good continuity of operations plan or disaster recovery plans. And typically they're a lot faster to back up than cloud-based storage. This is because it doesn't have to transcend across the internet. It is much more expensive than cloud storage. So when you get services from cloud storage providers, typically they're averaging out that a cost among all of their customers. So they're able to leverage that and reduce the cost. Whereas if you have a 1 terabyte drive and you're only using 10% of it, then all that rested space is really just lost, unneeded cost. And then your data is safe from cyber attacks if you disconnect from your network. Yes, there are some avenues where attackers may put viruses or something inside where it can operate without interaction, but for the most part, it is much, much safer than your cloud storage. Now, conversely to that, with cloud storage, everything's stored out there on the internet, and you may or may not have dictation on where that information is actually stored. Your facilities or your cloud provider may have facilities in Taiwan, in Germany, in America, and another location. You don't get to dictate where those are typically stored unless it's filled out in your SLA. You can access your data from anywhere in the world, and this is a major leveraging factor. This means that if I have to go on a business trip from LA over to New York, as soon as I get to New York, I could just log in and there's all my data. I don't have to worry about connecting in, hitting a VPN, all the other infrastructure issues that go along with it. However, there's also an additional cost associated with that because you have to have internet access. And you have to make sure that your connection to the cloud is a secure connection. You don't want information to be intercepted due to somebody sniffing that traffic. Another item there is that data is protected as long as your servers are okay. Big companies such as Google are going to back up those servers on a daily process. And then your backup speed is dependent upon your internet speed. So if you remember, on a network, typically your high speeds are all internal to your network, and you may have a 1 gig or maybe a 100 meg connection, or maybe even only a 15 or 12 meg connection back out to the world. Again, the cloud storage is much more cost effective. The cost is amortized across multiple people. And then your data is more vulnerable to cyber attacks because it's always there. One thing you want to remind your kids, once it's out there on the internet, it's out there. You're never getting it back. It's out there somewhere. Now, some of the security issues. There is no real way to disconnect from the cloud. There's no good way to say, well, it's stored out on that server and it's only going to be there. Information flows around out on the cloud or out in the clouds. There's not really a good amount of control for public clouds. You don't, as the end user, you don't have a dictation in how those clouds operate. You're just a user within that. Now your SLAs may define specific configuration items that your cloud provider can implement, but really there's no means to really secure it down. You don't have full control over that environment. And it is vulnerable to hackers. Now, some good things to keep in mind when putting data out in cloud storage. Number one, be aware of what you store on the cloud. All this rise in definitions with what's going on with celebrities. The common rule that I give to most of my airmen, most of my younger students is that if you don't want it seen, don't put it out there on the internet. If it's not something that you want mommy and daddy to see, don't put it out there, because once it's out there, it's out there. For sensitive information, if your company utilizes things like PII or HIPAA information, it should not be out there on a public cloud. Maybe in a private cloud where you have a little bit more security controls, but a public cloud is definitely a no-go. And you should have some type of policy in place within your organization to prevent the storage of that information out there. Make sure that your cloud accounts are secure. Don't give anybody access to your passwords. And make sure that if you're using like restorative services, things like, what's your maiden name or what was your third dog's first name, things like those. Make sure that you're kind of not giving information that you're putting out there in open source intelligence. This is really where the celebrities that had their accounts hacked not too long ago, their information wasn't really hacked. It was derived out of free information that they put out there about themselves. And then be aware of the different types of access control. Don't give somebody full control to an entire folder if they only need access to that one document. Just give them access to that one document and kind of hide everything else away from them. So in summary, we talked about what clouds are. That's just a recap from what we've had before. Some of the differences between local storage and cloud storage, and some of the concerns that you want to keep in mind with cloud storage specifically. If you have questions, ping your instructor, ping your classmates, and we'll get through this. Thank you.